morning, Bardstown and Nelson County, and welcome to another edition of Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford are with you this morning. Good morning, Margie.
Morning, Jim.
Well, I tell you, we have a beautiful Wednesday morning outside the studio here in beautiful downtown Bardstown. I see across the street the trees are starting to bud out with all their wonderful pollen.
Absolutely, and the grass is just growing like crazy.
I know. I've already mowed twice, and I was looking at it yesterday, and it needs mowing again. So that's part of the course, though.
Yeah, the grass is growing, and the moles are hard at work.
Yes, they are. Aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They make little hills everywhere.
Right. And then, just a public safety reminder: if you've got moles in your yard, that's a safety hazard for you, or any older people like myself, because that really changes how walking across your yard. It's no longer a flat, nice grassy lawn. It's hilly and
well, mine passed that category about 10 years ago.
Well, I keep.
I really am in the senior area there, but we're working on it. We're trying to get rid of them.
Well, if you have the secret, let me know.
Same here.
I will if it works.
Yeah.
Well, we've got groundhogs too, but that's a story for another day. All right, we're joined this morning by a very special studio guest, Nelson County Jailer Justin Hall. And good morning, Justin.
Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Margie.
Justin.
Thanks for having me on here, number 4.
It's great to have you on. And so many times the jail is one of those things that is seen and not heard, or not even heard sometimes.
Right.
And you have done a really good job since you've been elected as jailer of keeping fiscal court up to date on what's going on. And I think that's a wonderful service, because nobody knows people don't normally go to the jail,
right,
and don't know what's going on,
right,
and what it needs, and you do a great job keeping us and myself and the public informed.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I notice, especially in like the jails and prisons. A lot of the work, since it's behind those walls of the jail, it doesn't get published or and stuff, because it's behind in a secure area.
Right.
And one of the things I wanted to change, especially when I took office, was our taxpayer dollars are funding that building. People need to know what's going on there, good, bad, or indifferent. Mm-hmm. And I'm really trying to change the course of where we're taking our facility, and kind of what I've told staff even on the first day I took over. We may be one of the smaller jails in the state, but there is no reason we can't be the best at what we do. Mm-hmm. And so we've worked on training. We've worked on so many different avenues to try to make our jail respected. And also, people may not realize, what our overcrowding is, or what, or how much something has cost, or how much our work program has done, and I think it's a benefit for everybody to know those numbers.
Sure. Now, the jail was built in
87.
87, and then it was added on to, I believe.
Yeah, 1991. Mm-hmm.
91. Okay.
Yes.
And so, what's the total rated capacity now?
Total rated capacity is 102 beds. Mm-hmm. We're averaging anywhere from 130 to 140 inmates, depending on, especially after indictments and stuff. And what's interesting factor about that, Nelson County is almost at the tipping point of 50,000 people.
Right.
And we have 102 beds. LaRue County, which has a population of almost 14,000 people, has 50 more beds than I have. At their facility. And so just to kind of show you kind of where it stands at, and Grayson County, which a jailer over there does a fantastic, and LaRue's as well, they both do a great job, but Grayson County has a population of half of ours, and they have 717 beds.
Oh.
And their jail costs their taxpayers $0 to operate, and they actually turn money back into the fiscal court in excess of what they make.
That's amazing, because now I will tell you, I've covered county governments for 30 years, and the I don't know, the tradition, the thinking is that jails are a money pit.
Right.
They're a necessity, but you never make money. I'll tell you how many judge executives I've heard.
Right.
You'll never make money in a jail.
Right.
Because it's always it's a big expense.
It is. It's a huge expense, and I will tell you, like, I know there's been talks of a new jail here in Nelson County, and ultimately that comes down to the fiscal court, to make that decision, but I will tell you, it's not something that can't be done. It's been successfully shown in Grayson. Laurel County has built almost a 700-bed facility. Theirs is completely tax dollar free, costs our county nothing. So it's basically what you try to hold, like, your federal, state, and county prisoners. And really the only difference in that's who's paying the tab.
Right.
And that's, down at our jail, a lot of people don't realize I got everything from murder all the way, to child support cold check. So I got everything in between, even at our small jail that we have here. So it's not that you're bringing in any different caliber of people. It's the fact that you can get something to help offset the cost, because right now we're spending roughly $1.9 million out of the county coffers to help operate the jail. I bring in about $800,000 in state inmates and fees that I've collected almost $170,000 in fees, to help offset that we wasn't doing before. So I'm trying to do what I can to offset it. But can you imagine what $1.9 million extra money would do for roads?
Oh, wow.
Dean Watts Park. People want stuff for kids to do, and that's kind of where I'm looking at. I'm kind of looking at, I want to use my position to help take the burden off the county if they allow it. I mean, if they decide no, I'll operate our jail as efficiently as I can. Right. But what I will say is that our jail probably has 10, 15 years tops maximum usable life left in it. I mean, I'm fixing everything that I can to make it and to make the longevity of it. But we're really in a situation now to where we really have to start looking at what are we going to do.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about the possibility of a new jail, a large new jail. Is this a conversation that the fiscal court is having now?
Yes.
Or in the
yes.
are they going to consult the public at all?
Yes, they. A matter of fact, Magistrate John Snow he put out for a public meeting for everybody. Up in the district, and they're going to have several more open discussion meetings for it because it's not something that any of them want to take lightly, and me either. I mean, you definitely want.
The reason I ask is that I've heard people talking about it, and everybody I have heard talking about it was, they didn't want that. They didn't.
Right.
When you think of Eddyville, do you think of the town Eddyville? No, you think of the prison.
You think of the prison.
When you think of LaGrange, when I think of LaGrange, I don't think of an area of town. I think a lot of people don't want it. So, I mean, I would hope there would be a lot of public discussion about that before they started on this course.
Yeah, and there will be some more open sessions. But what I will say is that Laurel County has a jail that's proposed this size. And, when I think of Laurel County, I think of London. Grayson County has a jail that's bigger than what we're proposing. And I think of Clarkson and White City because my family's got property over there. And their jail has never really been the top part. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that over the next 25 years, and we've had two different feasibility studies done on this, next 25 years, if the state allows ours to remain open that long, it's going to cost Nelson County $120 million to operate for that. If they was to shut our jail down by Kentucky statute, we have to house our prisoners and contract with another one. That's going to be $140 million if we shut our jail. So right now our jail is saving us $20 million over 25 years just having it here. Versus if we build this jail, the cost for 25 years of operation total, because eventually inflation catches up with everything. And this is also with paying the bond note on it. The cost is $34 million, so it's a net savings of $100 million to Nelson County. And so really it's a decision. Ultimately, I don't have a vote in it. If y'all go back on the tapes that we did, when I was running for office, I said, we need a new jail. I'm all for a new jail, but I'm not for a new jail if it means raising our taxes or if it means putting an undue burden on the county, because I don't want want the jail to take place of somebody getting a road paved or doing some life safety work. So, I mean, it's a big discussion that's going to have.
Well, yeah, I mean, then, the public needs to know all those numbers.
Yeah, and they're going to do, they did a work, were you at the working session, Jim, up at fiscal court when they had it? We did do a working session where the person that did the feasibility study came in up there and actually went through all the numbers, and I think they're going to do it again. And I encourage community involvement. I mean, I've had a lot of people, that I've heard from both sides. I've heard some people say, "Why do you want to do it this size?" And I heard other people say, "Well, we do need a new jail." So I've heard all the different things, but the size portion of it is really so it will pay for itself,
right?
And that's
and the size is what people are worried about.
And we can do a smaller jail if that's what people wants to do, but we're going to end up in a situation. Yeah, it would probably help pay for itself. We would have enough room for it to help pay for itself, but that savings of $100 million that I was mentioning is probably going to get trimmed down it by half. So I mean, really, it's a ultimate. Basically, it's proposed. Me as a jailer, I don't have a vote in the fight. But the only thing I will say is that I'm trying to look out for our future in the county, and I know where our future leads. Our future leads to 10 or 15 years, our jail shutting down. Our future leads to, if that happens, we're going to have to contract with other counties. So we're going to have people that have family members here, possibly 100 miles away.
Right.
And that's where we're going to be at. And 10 years from now, the construction cost of this thing is going to be up by a third at least.
Oh, at least, yeah.
So every month every year that we wait on doing this, it's going to cost us more.
Do they have the land acquisition for this already?
No, it's in very very early stages.
Right.
Very early stages. If it was up to me, and they said, hey, I would love it to be fairly close to the new courthouse, or even in the industrial park over by Flowers. To me, that would be ideal. It's close to the Bluegrass Parkway. It's not in somebody's neighborhood,
right.
And stuff like that. So ultimately, that'll be discussion that they will have. But there hasn't been any property. It's been locked on. There is some land and stuff that's pretty close to the new courthouse, which several jails are built close to them, and they actually construct a tunnel so you can transport your inmates without having to get them outside the secure facility. So, I mean, a lot of stuff is being looked at as far as that goes. So it's going to be interesting to see what transpires this next year.
Well, Justin, I know we've been talking about a new jail. Our existing jail has undergone quite a transformation since you became jailer, and I think you had a recent survey or inspection, jail inspection, and I think that reflects all the work that you and your staff have been doing.
Absolutely, yeah. Our jail inspector, and I'll quote for him, he said, Nelson County Jail went from one of the worst jails out of the 13 that he inspects to the top of the list, or towards the top of the list. Things that we have done, zero taxpayer dollars have went into this. I've utilized grants, and I've utilized our commissary account. We bought a $240,000 body scanner that cost the county $0, which we have already found 9 hits on it since we put it in. It's resulted in 5 felony indictments. One girl had enough fentanyl in a body cavity to kill 7 people if they was to take it. So that machine's already paid for itself, in my opinion. But it's not a silver bullet. The body scanner, like I've said 1,000 times, it's a tool, and tools can fail, but it is something that we can utilize to help keep drugs out of our jail.
Sure.
We also got a grant for a complete new camera system. We have a brand new complete digital camera system in there now that we did. In our isolation cells, I have biometric sensors in there now to where they monitor via sonar heart rate and respiration of the people that's in that cell. So if they have a heart attack, if they're going through an overdose or have a medical emergency, it sounds an alarm in our booking area, in our control room, and we can respond faster, because under jail standards, a person that's on suicide watch or medical watch, you have to check them every 20 minutes, 3 times an hour. A lot can happen in 20 minutes. You could check on somebody, and then 3 minutes later, that person have a heart attack.
Right.
So that's one thing that...
What did you call it?
A biometric sensor.
A biometric
Sensor. It's mounted up in the ceiling, and it's got a graph, and it basically, in booking, we can see it goes by colors. It goes green's good, red's bad, and if it goes orange, that means that hey, this person lost a pulse. So
So it detects your heart
rate and respiration. It does both.
Okay.
Now, is that the cardia?
Yeah, Xander Cardia. Yeah, and it's and the technology first started out for nursing homes and hospitals, and then they branched off into correctional. And I think we were the second jail in the state to get it. I think several jails. LaRue County was one of the first, and he rubs that in on me quite a bit because we both ordered about the same time. But I will say that probably.
Will you have this just for certain selected inmates, or is it in every?
It only works on one person per cell. So the minute somebody goes inside of two people go inside of a cell, the data is inaccurate.
Okay.
So we have 2 isolation cells inside the jail, and that's where your prone suicide people and stuff are held at. So those two cells are the ones that have the technology.
Yeah.
They said, and last time I talked to the company, they said they're working on a sensor that will do up to 30 or 40 people in a room. And when we get that, I'm going to get that. But I'm curious to see how that's going to work, and how it's going to detect. Because right now, like if I walk into the room, it says active and it starts measuring instantly my heart rate. I walk out of the room and it goes orange and it's like, hey, we lost vitals. So I don't know what the technology is going to be because if we're pulling people in and out of a dorm, so I'll let them figure it out because they're probably smarter than me. But it's something that makes me sleep a little better at night. Another thing we've done too is that we went to electronic logging. Every cell has an RFID tag, and so when they scan the cell to do a check, it pulls up a listing of every inmate that should be in there. They have to walk in to check the inmates. And I'll tell you a story, and this is no reflection on any past administration. I come from a different background than some of the other jailers did. But my first week, I had a staff member who's no longer at the facility, and I looked at him looking at the bank of cameras, and then I watched him go over to our log and marked all seems secure. And I was like, no. No, this is not the way we do stuff. We got people's loved ones in here. We don't. No, absolutely not. I was disgusted. And you would have thought that I changed, the course of the Titanic whenever I said, we're going in these cells. You're going to verify that they're breathing every hour, because that's what jail standard says, and you are going to mark it on it. And being that was on a log or whatever, I said, you know what? We're going to something that cannot be forged, altered, or changed. And that's not only for keeping us honest.
Now, this is every night, every morning, or when?
This is every hour. Every hour, there's a complete check of that jail.
Okay.
Yeah, every hour, there's a complete check. In our detox, or somebody that's on watch, it's every 20 minutes. But every hour, now the state law calls
now, is
for...
this eyes-on?
What I require... Now, three times a day, by jail standards, you have to have a documented head count. So that's eyes on, see the person. And what's convenient is that you serve meals 3 times a day too. So that person has to stand up, come get their tray and stuff like that. And that's a perfect opportunity to do that. Always utilize your time the best you can.
Sure.
And so we have that. But at nighttime especially, because you don't want to wake somebody up every hour.
Right.
But if somebody's laying down in their bunk or whatever, they have to verify that there's actual breathing going on. On that person. I want them to see a respiration. I want them to see that, and stuff like that. And this was all new. This wasn't being done. But this is what we did over at the other place. And the thing about it is, what I make all my decisions on is, number one, what's best for the jail. Number two, if my daughter was to get arrested tomorrow, how would I want her to be treated, handled, and documented? And number three, what's best for the taxpayers' money. And those 3 decisions go into mine. So if I have, which I get contacted by family members all the time, of different things, or they're worried about their kid and stuff like that. And I get it. If it was my kid, I've seen 1,000 people that's, tough on crime, and the minute it changes is when their kid gets arrested. And then all of a sudden it's that they got their medicine, and what are they doing to him? What's his court status? Him or her. And, I really try to put myself in other people's shoes to determine because the thing about it is they're all human beings. Majority of them up there are decent people, good people. We do have some really bad people up there that do not need to be out for ever, some of them, but that's not my decision, that's the courts. But ultimately, majority of these people are going to be out and stuff, and the question is, what can I do to help them while they're in there?
Just people who made bad decisions.
Made bad decisions.
choices.
So we fired back up our GED program. We got it going. We started MRT, moral reconnaissance therapy, whatever. That's a DOC program. We started anger management. We've started parenting. We have also are doing portals classes, which helps people get their driver's license and their birth certificates and stuff like that, so they have documentation, and stuff when they get out. And we cover the cost of that. I'm getting ready to start a welding class up there. I'm getting ready to start, and then if that goes good, we're going to go over into electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. I'm trying to give people some trades,
Yeah.
so that way
That's a great idea.
hopefully they can go. Yeah. And so I got a meeting next week over the welding stuff, and I may partake in it because I can't weld at all. So I may see if I can learn something a little bit about it. But
So where do they conduct these classes?
well, the welding stuff is going to be the inmates that are eligible to go outside and work because of the security level.
So-
It'd probably be over our county road department if I had to guess, since
Okay.
it's proximity to the jail. But the other classes like the parenting, and also Shauna Shekels comes in, does domestic violence as well. And we do have a lot of church services come in now. I actually do have a lot of church services that happen. Oh, and we do NA and AA, both Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. But basically, those classes like the MRT and the GED and stuff, they're all done in our multi-purpose room inside the jail. So, there's no security risk there. Anybody, regardless of what they're charged with, can partake in a lot of these different services that we have. And you have to be really careful, too, because, being in this line of work, stuff that some people don't think of, what I have to be really careful is that sometimes people will use programs for purposes other than a program. If they have a co-defendant, or they have somebody that may have got some contraband in, and they want to share it with their buddy, they may somehow pass them in the hallway or something when they're going to court and say, sign up for GED. And they'll use it so they can get in the same room together and do whatever they're wanting to do, or communicate however they want to communicate, or pass a note or do something, and it may be detrimental to a case. So we have to look at those programs, even though as good as they are, we also have to look at them as a point of jeopardizing a case, or also passing something that shouldn't be passed, or because we try to keep all co-defendants and stuff where they can't communicate, because as people get their stories changed, and it really makes it hard on the courts and the prosecution and everything else involved.
Right. Well, Justin, we need to take a commercial break. We'll get back, and I want to talk a little bit about bonds and
Yes, sir.
and bail and all that. All right, you're listening to Bradford and Brooks, Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford, and we will be back in just a few moments, and we'll continue our discussions with Nelson County Jailer Justin Hall. Stay tuned. All right, you're back with Bradford and Brooks, Jim Brooks, Margie Bradford, with you on this beautiful Wednesday morning here in beautiful downtown Bardstown. And I think it's going to be a great day, so get out and enjoy it if you can. And our special guest today is Nelson County Jailer Justin Hall. And sometimes I think we should broadcast our commercials, our discussions during the breaks, because they're usually thought-provoking and interesting as well. Anyway, Justin's been talking about the jail and corrections, and he just mentioned before we came back that Justin, you mentioned that you changed the name of the jail from the Nelson County Jail to the Nelson County Correctional Complex.
Correctional Center.
Correctional Center. And there's a reason to do that.
There's a reason. A jail is a warehouse, and my sole purpose is to try to, with all these programs that we talked about earlier that we're doing, I'm trying to help people not come back into jail. I'm trying to give them resources. When they get out now, they actually get a packet that's got, the career center information in it, homeless shelters, stuff. Sometimes if they let me know ahead of time, I'll try to arrange them housing or get them enrolled in a treatment center. And so the reason I changed it from jail to correctional center is because I'm trying to help people and correct some behaviors. A jail, to me, is a warehouse. So I'm changing the mission statement, and some people, when I talk to some people, are like, lock them up, throw away the key, and what I say is that's not fixing the problem.
Right.
The only thing that's not fixing the problem, because let me tell you, if my daughter had a substance abuse problem or something like that, I'm going to go to my grave trying to help her. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what I have to do it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I've dealt with these, I'm going on my 18th year of being in the correctional jail business. And, sometimes we're the only family they got at the jail. Like they come in, like there's some inmates that I see, they'll come in and they'll talk to me like it's a brother of mine. You know what I mean? Just because they've been in and out so long, because they have nobody else. But then also you got people that, I'll get a phone call. I was on the phone for 20 minutes the other day with a concerned mom. First time her son ever been arrested, some pretty serious stuff. And, I was trying to give her the walkthrough of what to expect, what can happen. I can't give legal advice, but I told her, if it was my daughter or son, this is what I would do, and you try to help people and guide people. And that's one of the things I think that sets Kentucky apart from a lot of the different states is that, we have an elected jailer and we have an elected sheriff. And the reason, and it wasn't mentioned until the third Constitution of Kentucky about a jailer, and the reason is so that the person doing the catching, the sheriff, and the person doing the holding, the jailer, that way there was no, back then, with corruption and stuff like that, It was basically to separate the two. That way somebody couldn't, pay off. But now it's got to a point now to where you have an elected official that's accountable to that facility, that, I answer anybody that calls me, I call them back. And quite frankly, like me and Raymond's talked, he's got enough stuff on his plate that he don't have time to run a jail on top of running the sheriff's department. So that's one thing I think Kentucky does right, personally. I think, I really do think there's a lot of dedicated jailers. But again, every elected official is only as good as the person itself. I mean, you'll get some good people in office, you'll get some bad people in office, and ultimately that's what that ballot box is for, is to fix that problem.
Right.
Well, I think the programs that you talked about that you all have instituted there to help the inmates to try to prepare for life on the outside.
Absolutely.
How many of the jails in Kentucky do that? And are there any kind of standards? I mean, are you setting your own standard? Or is there a state standard that even attempts to do these things?
It's not, well, there's a bare minimum. You have to offer religious services, Narcotics Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you hold state prisoners, you have to have like one other alternative program. So basically, I'm going up and beyond. Now, there's 3 jails in the state that's called life safety jails. And what those are jails, and this is where our jail is going to end up eventually if we don't do something, is where you can only hold county prisoners. A life safety jail can only hold county prisoners. You cannot hold any state prisoners. So you get no state funding whatsoever. And
is that because
the age and the condition of the facility and the spaces and stuff that they have? So really when it comes down to it, those jails, their standard of operating programs is not as high as one that's got state prisoners in it. But it's definitely not something that, I think that we've done a good job for a jail our size exceeding what needs to be done, but it's definitely not something that I was the first one that ever done it, as far as that goes.
Well, Justin, as we discussed before the show, I want to touch a little bit on the bonds, but yes. I know the jailer has nothing to do with bond nothing. Amounts.
Right.
I don't even think you collect it, do you?
We do collect.
You do?
We do collect, but it goes in a lockbox, and the circuit court clerk or deputy clerk comes down to collect those.
Right.
Yes.
Now that's a function of the courts.
At the courts.
And how that gets set, I think, isn't each inmate, each person evaluated?
They are. When somebody first gets arrested, there's what's called a pretrial assessment that is done, and it has to be done by statute within 12 hours upon arrest. What we normally do when somebody comes in, we take their citation or their warrant, and a lot of times a warrant we'll actually have a bond amount on there. So if somebody can come up with that cash, we'll go ahead and let them bond out, and whatnot. But if they can't bond out, that gets sent to pretrial. What pretrial does, they do an extensive criminal background check. They check the charges, previous criminal history, and then a bond is set based on that with the judge. And based on that criminal history, and one of the main things they look for, because a bond is really to ensure their appearance in court. One of the things they look for, which really dings people, is if you've missed court. If you have missed court at one time, that goes towards your points. You know what I mean? If you miss, and it could be something as simple as a traffic ticket or something, and you didn't show up to court and they issue out a warrant, or something like that. But really, that's where it boils down to on that. And the state's gotten a lot better when it comes to bonds and stuff. But unfortunately, with our system, if somebody's nonviolent and they have a good court appearance schedule, a lot of times they're in and out same day. Sometimes within hours, and if I've had many conversations with judges and prosecutors and stuff like that, and the sad reality is, because of the size of our jail, there's people that is released that they don't really want to release, but they have no other option unless we was to put people in tents on the roof of the jail. I mean, really, unfortunately. So we try to keep the worst of the worst in, and we try to manage what we have.
Right.
Well, you said at the beginning when we were talking about that, you had a total of 102 beds, but you have between 130 to 140 inmates.
Yes.
So where are you putting those?
Well, I'm really good at playing Jenga. That was one of my really good things of the game Jenga. Basically, what they have is that we space out the square footage inside of the jail. They're given a mat and everything else, but basically they're on the floor until a bed. When the inmate gets released and they get moved up, we cycle through.
So they're doing a pallet on the floor.
Yeah,
what we call a pallet.
Yeah, that's what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not the only jail that does that. Every jail's kind of in a situation like that when it comes to it. But there are some jails that are overpopulated. There are some that's underpopulated right now. It really just comes in waves. I've seen ours down to 110, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then the next week, it's back up to 125. So, we booked in last year almost 2,000 people. Mm-hmm. So, and we're on track to exceed that this year.
Well, Justin, does the state have, and I hear lots of different stories about, well, the state's going to reopen MAC, or various things. Does the state correctional give you all any guidance on, what their plans are moving forward in the future? Because we need more jail space.
Right, and it's and I'll tell you one thing I didn't realize until I actually became jailer was how much affects the legislator has on my job as a person. I know they pass laws, but they it seems like every legislative session, especially in the House, the Senate is really good. It seems like that there's some bills that come out that are basically attacking my job or something about the job or something that I'm just like, this doesn't make sense to me. Why are we even doing this? And one thing I'll say about Senator Higdon and Massaroni is that anytime a jail bill would come out, they would call me and ask my opinion and advice on it, which I thought was great. But actually, but I hope that relationship, whatever caused that to be, I hope they will work with us, on a lot of things. But from what I heard from the state, I do have a lot of friends that work state DOC. Right now, they got two of the Lee Adjustment Center and Big Sandy. Core Civic owns those, and the state leases them. So those were private prisons the state's leasing and are now actual state prisons, but they're leased. They're not operated under that umbrella as far as. Now, Marion is still owned by Core Civic, and I'm sure when space comes available, and they're going to be, in the future, KSR, Kentucky State Reformatory, it's in such bad shape, they're getting ready to construct a new prison adjacent to that or pretty close to the property to expand. So they know they have to do something too. I mean, they do.
I worked in Oldham County at the newspaper there 25, 30 years ago.
Right.
And they were talking about improving KSR even back then.
Right.
You know, I don't know how old it is now, but I'm sure.
But it's now, I know, because Rotor Correctional, which is the state, every prisoner that I take to prison, their first stop is Rotor Correctional Complex, which is behind KSR. And when you ride by, there's some old wings and dorms that the glass is busted out that's not occupied by any means. But that place has some age and some serious degrading, you know, just because it's so old, you know. I mean, Eddyville is as old as pretty much our old jail up here that's now the bed and breakfast, you know, and they're still operating it, you know. So there's definitely much room for improvement as far as that goes. And they know, you know, it's like with anything. You buy a 100-year-old house, you know you're going to have to sock some money into it.
Right.
And, you know, it's a cards we're all dealt with. You know, we try to make the best of what we got to do.
Okay. Now, the improvements you've made at this jail are numerous. How impactful has the body scanner been? Because, you know, it's always, and getting contraband, is particularly drugs in a jail,
Absolutely.
is an ongoing battle.
Yes, it is.
And, you know, you come up with a scanner, and I'm sure I've heard of lacing paper with drugs.
Yes.
And like part in a book or something.
Yes.
And getting it in.
Right. And so what we have done, we've tackled that threefold. With the body scanner, we've had 9 positive hits, 9 drug actual possessions from people. And what's happening is people's putting these drugs in body cavities, and I won't, for the sake of our listeners, I won't go into detail. But so if they get pulled over and they're pat down or their vehicle searched, they don't find nothing.
Right.
But they may have a warrant, and they may end up coming into jail with me, and then we find it on the scan. Like I say, one girl in particular who we just indicted had enough fentanyl to kill 7 people in a body cavity. And so
They put it in like a balloon or something?
it was in, and I wish I could show you a picture. It was basically, it looked like a little copper tube that you bought at Lowe's and put an end cap on it. That's basically what it was. It was a little, I mean, it showed up on the body scanner. It looked like, when I first saw the picture of it, it looked like a AA battery is what it looked like. But once we got out, it was actually the size of a D battery, and it was completely full with, you know, over 40 pills inside of it. And another thing with the mail, their mail now is sent to an off-site processing center. They pull it up on a kiosk inside their dorm because they was putting liquid drops of stuff inside the jail. We did have an incident here recently. We have a no accepting through the window policy. It used to be people, well, I'm going to drop off books for little Timmy so he can read them and stuff. Well, what was interesting is I had a known drug dealer and then a known other drug dealer that called to drop off books to this other drug dealer. So I'm like, sure, bring them in, you know. So we let them bring them in, and wasn't going to give them to the inmate, you know. So I got a copy of that person's driver's license. Thank you for dropping them off. And we open them up, and there's drugs inside the books, you know. So the stuff that you know you can get off the street, because if I didn't intercept it at the jail, that's going to go into somebody else's system.
Right.
So and we indicted those too. So they tried to bring it in.
Was it a hollowed out book, or was it the pages were sewn?
The pages, they were kind of stuck. They were kind of basically they were kind of thinned out and kind of stuck in the binding a little bit inside the book. Yeah, there was about probably, I think it was like 3 or 4 books that was dropped off. So it was that was a way of us getting drugs off the street without having to really do much work. You know, we let them do it for us. So it was great. But that's one thing we try to keep, like with medication and stuff. You know, part of our constitutional standard, we have to provide medical care, reasonable medical care to everybody inside that building. And so what a lot of jails did in the past and stuff is that, you know, if a medication, you know, I know one medicine I'm on without insurance is like, I think, close to $400, I think, without insurance. And so we have to brunt the cost. So what some jails would do in the past would be like, well, I got the prescription at my house. Do you care if mom or dad brings it over? And they'd be like, yeah, sure, okay, we're saving, you know, $400. But what happens now is that people will take the gel caps and everything else apart. They will lace them with drugs, and basically during their morning pill pass, instead of getting the medication, they're getting methamphetamine or cocaine or whatever it may be. So that process no longer happens.
Do you have a nurse there to dispense?
Yes, yeah. Well, during the day. Now I'll tell you what I did too on this. We have our nursing contract is 40 hours nursing, and we have a 24-hour on-call line, which means if somebody's complaining of chest pains, they check vitals, they call, they make a determination whether to give medication, send out to a hospital. We also bought an EKG machine there at the jail as well that we have, and basically, we make a determination based on those factors of what happens. Now, the daytime pill pass is done with the nurse. The nurse packages it for the afternoon pass, and I just got a new EMR, which is basically a medical record system for the jail, that for when the deputies pass it. Now, I got a cart, and I got a laptop, and when they're going to each cell, it pulls up the inmate, picture of the inmate, what their pill should look like, how many of them, and what it is, and they basically check it off on that list. So I'm doing that to help, because there has been mix-ups. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it with any of it.
Yeah, there are mix-ups in hospitals.
Right, and
so it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, and another thing too is that we in our pill packs now and stuff, it clearly labels the medication with the inmate's name, with the date, and what dosage it is, and if it's morning or evening. So, as a matter of fact, our local pharmacy here, Crooms, does that for us. We was using a pharmacy that was out of state, so I wanted to go to local. People pay tax dollars here, so that's one of the things I did too. Was I brought as much stuff back to Kentucky and Nelson County as I could, because people pay taxes here in the state in Nelson County, and I think that's where it should stay.
Right.
Well, we're getting down to the wire, Justin, sorry. I was trying to do three things at once.
No, it's all good.
Appreciate all the time you've spent with us today.
Absolutely.
And appreciate the updates to fiscal court.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
More, because your updates are always more than just, we have X number of
inmates
and X number of women, felons versus misdemeanors and whatnot. I mean, we need to know that information.
Absolutely.
But the jail is really a very important part of county government that I think the trend has been, you're
out of sight, out of mind. Out of mind, right.
Right, but the jail has much more visibility now.
It does.
And we appreciate all the work that that the inmate crews do.
Thank you. That's one thing I'm very proud of, is that inmate crew.
Well, I'm assuming the ability to do that is appreciated by the inmates too.
Oh, they love it. They love it. If they love getting out, getting fresh air and stuff like that. Even some of them just for the exercise. They're like, they'll come in and say, "I walk 4 miles a day." I said, "That's awesome. I got my exercise in." But and I do take really good care of our workers and stuff. There's times I'll buy them food and do stuff like that, a little extra, to show appreciation for what they do.
All righty. Well, we're just about out of time now, Margie. We've got a special show next week, I believe.
Yes, we do. Dr. Terry Brooks, who is executive director of Child Advocacy Group, is going to be our guest, and again to talk to us about the need for child advocacy and the legislation which was followed in the legislature this last session.
Right. We have him on about once a year, and he's has all the data and information about what the state of the state for for child welfare.
Exactly. Yes, and I mean a great advocacy group.
Right. All right. Thank you again, Justin.
All right. Thank you all.
All right. We'll see you next time, next Wednesday, for another Bradford and Brooks. Have a great week.